We cross now to Griselda Lewis, who's in Pretoria. A very good morning to you, Griselda. What can we expect today?
Well, good morning to you, Valen. Well, we're expecting the state's third witness, Charles Johnson, to return to the stand where the defence will try to poke holes in his testimony and look for the similarities or point out the similarities between he and his wife's testimony. You'll know that his wife, Michelle Berger, was the first state witness to take the stand, where both testified to hearing fighting at the home of Oscar Pistorius and also gunshots. Now, we also want to look at the testimony of Kevin Lerena, who you said rightly, Valen, that he testified that Oscar Pistorius fired a shot underneath the table of an upmarket restaurant. So now we're going to talk to Martin Hood, who's a firearms attorney, to talk basically about the rules when handling firearms in public. Martin, thank you very much for joining us on Morning Live this morning. Martin, let's look first of all at the rules in light of the testimony of Kevin Lerena in this trial. What are the rules when handling a firearm in public?
The first rule is that you shouldn't. It's as simple as that, because of the very possibility that the gun could discharge and injure somebody who's in that public place.
When do you go to a public place with a firearm? What are the rules there?
I think there's two issues. The first is that there's no restriction in law on carrying a firearm in a public place, but the owner of a premises can decide whether you can or cannot take firearms onto those premises, and they have to advise the firearm owner that firearms are not welcome.
So basically it wasn't illegal to take the firearm there, but the handling of the firearm in this incident is what is under question.
I think the handling of the firearm itself was both a criminal offence and also, in terms of generally accepted firearm handling rules, it was reckless or negligent to do so. You simply do not handle a firearm in a public place because it could be loaded and it could discharge and it could injure somebody.
How would you describe the conduct of what we've heard relating to that incident according to Kevin Lerena's testament?
The conduct of both of the persons concerned was not that of a responsible firearm owner. They should know better.
Talk us through, the process, very briefly, of acquiring a firearm license. Who should, who shouldn't? What is the process?
You have to be competent, which involves a background check. You would also have to be trained, and in the process of being trained, you'd be taught about those basic firearm handling rules, and you'd also be tested on the law relating to how you can use a firearm. So you would specifically be tested on the issue of whether you can handle a firearm in public or not. Once you become competent, once you pass the background test, once you've been trained, you then are declared competent, and then you can apply for a firearm license. You then have to justify why you want that specific firearm.
Do you think that getting Kevin Lerena to testify at this stage on this particular issue, perhaps a picture wants to be painted of Oscar Pistorius being a trigger-happy individual?
I think that's part of the state strategy, but we must also remember that part of this entire process is an educational process. We need to make sure that everybody handles their firearms responsibly, and this is a very good manner to educate the public on how firearms should be handled.
Also moving forward, in addition, there are two additional charges relating to the contravention of the Firearms Control Act. Do you think the addition of these others, because there's three relating to the Firearms Control Act and then one of murder relating to Oscar Pistorius' murder trial, do you think that it will weigh heavily on this case? I'm asking for your expert opinion as a firearms attorney.
They're all separate offences. They're all separate serious offences. Each one has a maximum imprisonment of 5 years. So even if Oscar is acquitted on the main charge, there is the distinct possibility that he could be convicted on the additional charges, and that would mean that he still faces the possibility of a term of imprisonment. And I think that's very important because they're all separate, distinct charges and they're all separate, distinct offences.
Martin Hood, thank you very much for waking up so early to join us here on Morning Live. Martin Hood there, who's a firearms attorney, giving some insight following the testimony of Kevin Lerena's statement yesterday, where he indicated inside court that there was an incident relating to Oscar Pistorius using his firearm, or fired a shot rather, underneath the table of an upmarket restaurant.
All right, thank you very much. That's Griselda Lewis standing outside of the court in Pretoria.